Welcome to Nostos, the open world survival game by Chinese studio, NetEase, and perhaps one of the prettiest and most confusing games I've ever played. Many of you know that I considered 2018's Red Dead Redemption 2 to be a masterpiece of open world design. Its exceptional story, bold gameplay decisions, and mountains of polish leave me comparing it to a 5-star dining experience in a luxurious Tuscan villa. In keeping with the same metaphor, this was my experience playing Nostos. From the very start of my handful of hours playing, right up to the very last minute, I had no fucking idea what was going on, but damn, if that wasn't going to stop me from trying. The start of the demo had the player greeted by one of the 2008 Beijing Olympic mascots in an enormous room with a life-sized hologram of yourself before being told to choose between two scenarios. The first tasked players with collecting herbs for your grandmother, and the second was a quest to save the land from a world-ending force of nature. You can probably guess which one I found more exciting. The first character you meet is Lupus, a horribly deformed dog who brutally murders a forest creature to the delight of the protagonist. A scene that certainly sparked a sense of déjà vu. Lupus wasn't a particularly vocal addition to the game, but he did his job of tanking hits, both for and from me, throughout my playthrough. There were only a handful of characters that I encountered on my journey, from this old man, my grandmother who spoke Swedish or something, and a handful of strangers out in the wild, who predictably always needed help with things they could probably just do themselves. This fucking child wanted me to burn down the habitat of a bunch of innocent creatures and bring her the carcass of a fox so she could know what it was like to feel one in her hands. Naturally, I shot her in the head and went on my merry way. I think the biggest strength of Nostos is its visuals, which are very reminiscent of Breath of the Wild, and I was hit with an impressive amount of weather effects during my short playthrough. I wasn't sure whether it was tuned specifically for the demo, but at times, the weather seemed to change every 30 seconds. But to be fair, the weather was one of the most normal features of this game. Nostos has a combat system that I personally would have liked to be slightly more challenging, but it's impossible to gauge the difficulty properly with my short playtime. Predictably, I gravitated towards a ranged playstyle, as I wasn't much of a fan of the close range combat. I found some of the enemies to be a lot tankier than I would have liked, and in the final battle of the demo, I had to keep running away from the fight, as I simply didn't prepare well enough beforehand. Eventually I discovered that you can just craft a gun, which was literally like taking a gun to a club fight in terms of difficulty. My favorite weapon, however, was a lightsaber, which wasn't called that for presumably legal reasons, but you can form your own judgment. At this point, I do have to get back to the fact that this is a survival game, and that players do need to manage hunger, thirst, and their own health to stay alive. With this being said, I never found it difficult to survive at even the most intense of situations, and in fact the only time I perished was 100% from my own making. There's also a whole system of gathering and crafting that lets players build houses, craft weapons, and even construct vehicles. Although, something I hope the developers change before launch is how unbearably long it takes to construct a house. Holding down a single key for an entire minute to just build the foundation of a house isn't something anyone wants to do in a survival game. It's worth mentioning that this was a beta build, which did come with some special features like textures popping in, a few missing options in the menu, and some genuinely funny translations that I hope more than anything turns into a meme format. I also thought the inventory and menus could have been cleaner and easier to navigate, but this seems to be an inherent problem in the survival genre going back to the previous console generation. The world was also an absolutely enormous 10 square kilometers, which seemed comically large, but that might have been my lack of vehicles to cut down those long travel times. In the end, this was my experience playing Nostos. I set off on an adventure with my abomination of a dog in a quest to make Grandma feel better. After quickly giving up on that and walking aimlessly to harvest my depression, I find out about a plot for ocean coral to take over the world with the help of flying jellyfish or something. After an attack on my village and a talk by a 40-year-old baby, I then ventured past Springday Shallow, which frankly didn't live up to the name in the slightest. I then murdered a man sleeping in a field, burnt down an enormous ocean tree, and landed safely from 30 meters in the air, which was pretty lit. I then shuffled my way down a mountain, found a science, put all my skill points into building, and held down the E key for an entire minute, trying to build a house. I then climbed an enormous plane wreck, witnessed a mating ritual, got a little too invested in what I saw, appreciated the smell of napalm in the morning, failed to replicate the feat of a biblical figure, attended a crab rave, completed an entire mission in literally 20 seconds, found a lightsaber, discovered the Declaration of Independence, saved the world from the tyranny of the ocean, and fall for such a long time that I still caught the audience off guard with the oldest trick in the
I'm gay!
Nostos will be multiplayer at launch and will be available for PC with VR support sometime in the fourth quarter of 2019. Viewers who want to pre-register can do so in the description. But once again, thanks for watching and embrace the bullshit.